The fluorescent lights at Cascadia Regional Medical Center made a sound if you stood still long enough. A thin electric hum lived in the tiles and vents and the plastic of the face shields. Nora Kincaid heard it. She heard the blood pressure cuff easing down on bed 3. She heard the click of a pen from the charge nurse. She heard the squeak of polished shoes coming to a stop 2 feet from her elbow. Dr. Malcolm Reyes did not speak at first. He let silence do the leaning. Nora kept her eyes on the chart until the beat reached 2, then looked up and met his gaze for exactly that long before returning to the paper. "You are the new resident," he said, not a question. "Yes, sir. First day on trauma. Nora Kincaid." He tasted her name. 34. Residency now. That is atypical. I wanted civilian experience. Your file says you finished medical school 8 years ago, then a gap. He adjusted wire rims with a motion that suggested he had made up his mind about her already. What did you do in between Dr. Kincaid? Research, various contracts. Nothing that shows here. He slid the chart from her hands. You asked for povidone iodine instead of chlorhexidine. Old habit. I study broadly. He turned a page. Your sutures on the forearm laceration. Spacing exact. Tension consistent. It looks like a robot did it. Nora let the hum fill the gap. I have practiced. Reyes closed the chart without slamming it. The control was a choice. You are hiding something. Here's what matters. If you bring drama or liability into my department, you will be gone before your shift ends. Understood. He looked for a flicker and found none. Gallbladder and OR2 at noon. You will observe. Do not touch anything. He walked away. The squeak receded. Janelle Park slid a cup toward Nora. The lid dented the coffee, already losing heat. You made it through Reyes's gauntlet. Welcome to Cascadia. He seems thorough. He is brilliant and allergic to mystery. Janelle leaned an elbow on the counter. State school? Nora nodded. State. No one restarts at 34 without a story. A monitor beeped a wandering rhythm from Bay 4. Not urgent. A lead had slipped when someone rolled over. Nora's eyes flicked there anyway. Keep your secrets, Janelle said. Just keep your charts clean. The trauma door snapped open. 2 paramedics shouldered through with a gurney. The kid on it could not be 20. Rebar punched through his left thigh. Blood had soaked the dressing and tracked across the mattress in a dark ribbon. Trauma 2, the medic called. Pulse 130. Pressure 90/60. Lost a leader on scene. Dr. Amy Tan took the head of the bed without raising her voice. We do not pull anything until imaging. Hold pressure above and below. Let me see the distal pulse. Nora stepped back. Observers did that. She let her hands rest against the counter and let her eyes measure angles. The rebar passed medial to lateral. The blood was a steady ooze dark. Venous. The kid's right hand opened and closed like it was looking for something to hold. Bring the scanner, Tan said. A scent cut through betadine and latex. Sweet, not sugar. Iron with fruit behind it. Nora had smelled it in crowded rooms that did not have monitors. Her mouth said the words before her mind finished the math. Dr. Tan. Not now. Right upper quadrant. What? Palpate right upper quadrant. Tan stared for a heartbeat, then pressed her hand into the kid's abdomen. He screamed. Her face changed. Get me the ultrasound now. The machine glided in on squeaky wheels. Gel, probe, image, black in places that should have been bright. Free fluid, Tan said. He is bleeding in the abdomen, possible liver laceration. Call OR. We are moving hot. The room shifted from busy to fast. Nora stepped back again, the hum rising. Tan cut a glance her way while she snapped on sterile gloves. How did you know? Himalay's blood has a sweet scent with hepatic involvement. You cannot smell that in this mess. Nora said nothing. Tan held her eyes 1 second, then turned back to the work. Good catch, she said without looking again. They rolled toward the elevator. The door slid open like a mouth. Reyes had been watching. He stood at the threshold to administration with his hands in his pockets. Kincaid, he said. My office. End of shift. Janelle let breath out slow. Either you bought goodwill or you bought a target. I will find out. The hours flattened. The ER settled into its metronome. People charted. People waited. People pretended they did not listen for sirens. Bay 6 held a woman in her 50s with the careful posture of someone who tries not to make the pain grow. The chart read, Linda Shu. Fever a touch over 100. White count, 14,000, abdominal pain for 3 days, nausea, ultrasound pending, suspected cholecystitis. How are you feeling, Ms. Shu? Nora asked. Better with the meds. Scale of 1 to 10. 4 now. It was 8 this morning. Nora nodded and read the page again. The timing did not line up with the numbers. The fever should be higher for this much tenderness. The white count, too. She looked at Linda's eyes, the sclera not yet yellow, but something was off in the tint. Skin a half shade wrong. Has anyone asked about your urine? Nora said. Color changes. No, why? Any darker than usual. Since yesterday, I thought dehydration. Nora pressed right upper quadrant. Linda winced. She pressed lower along the right flank. The wince sharpened into a sound. When did you last urinate? Nora asked. This morning. I have had fluids. I do not know why it is so little. Nora nodded. She caught a nurse with her chin. Can we add a urinalysis to Ms. Shu's orders? The nurse hesitated. Dr. Reyes already set the gallbladder protocol. I am adding a UA. Please page Dr. Reyes and tell him I'm concerned for ascending infection with early sepsis. If I'm wrong, he can tell me himself. The nurse stared, then picked up the phone. Nora stayed 2 fingers on Linda's pulse. Strong but fast. She checked the temp again. 100.4 now. The numbers whispered when you let them. 15 minutes. The UA came back with bacteria and white cells enough to make a point. The nurse's face carried both apology and urgency. Reyes wants a repeat CBC and blood cultures. He is on his way. He is on. Start piperacillin tazobactam, Nora said. I need an attending for that. You will have 1 in 2 minutes. Reyes arrived like weather pressure first, then wind. He did not look up until he had turned 1 page and then another. His jaw moved once. He finally said, explain. Gallbladder inflamed with ascending infection. The bile duct is involved. Early sepsis. She is making dark urine and not enough of it. She has flank tenderness. The fever rises despite meds. If we treat gallbladder only and wait for the scan, the infection will progress. These are subtle signs. They are sufficient if you pay attention. Nora had not meant the edge in her voice. It was there anyway. Reyes narrowed his eyes, then looked at the nurse. Start the antibiotics, he said. Admit. Cultures every 6 hours. Get nephrology in the morning. He turned back to Nora. My office, end of shift. They walked without speaking. His steps made noise. Hers did not. They passed the elevator. Nora put her hand on the stairwell bar like it was a habit her body kept without asking permission. His office was small and controlled. Frames in a grid. Journals stacked by month. 1 photo and a ward a smile that did not reach the eyes. He sat and let the room hold the weight for him. 6 weeks ago, he said you did not exist here. Your references are ordinary. Your interview was ordinary. You were accepted because we needed bodies, and you looked like one that would not cause trouble. In 6 hours, you have made 2 calls most residents do not make in 2 years. You identify complications before imaging. You move like a person who has done this many times before. Nora waited. Where did you train? He said. Do not say state school. I did research work under confidentiality. Research does not give you that suture line. It does not give you that smell. It does not give you the way you stand. Maybe I am a fast learner. You are lying. If you are competent, I do not care what you are lying about. If you are hiding something that will land us in court, I will find it. Then I will end this for you. Before she could shape a reply, both their pagers erupted. The sound was not the quiet hum. It was an alarm that cut through bone. The red light over the trauma doors began to turn. Reyes looked at her, a single beat, then he stood. Trauma alert, the PA said. Incoming, multiple injuries. Nora put her hand on the stair rail. The elevator doors slid open down the hall and closed again. The hum of the light settled into its line. They moved. They took the stairs. Nora's hand found the cold rail, then the next landing. The hum in the walls ran under the thud of feet and the clipped calls drifting up from the bay. The double doors blew wide. 2 paramedics drove a gurney straight at bed 1. The man on it wore a construction vest streaked gray with dust. A fist of rusted rebar rose from below his left clavicle and disappeared toward his heart. Blood slicked the entry like oil. His eyes rolled and caught light without focus. Male 25, the lead medic said. Fall from scaffolding, impaled. We did not pull. Pressure tanking. 90 over 50. SpO2 in the 80s. Arrested once on scene. Got him back. 2 large-bore IVs, Dr. Reyes said. Cut the clothing, cross-match. Prepare for massive transfusion. Move him to OR3. Nora stood at the foot of the bed. She stepped out of the way of a nurse with shears, let the elbow brush her shoulder, then leaned in to see the neck. The jugular vein stood out like a cable. The trachea slid right. She pressed her stethoscope and hunted for a heart sound that stayed vague, distant, as if buried under a blanket. "Dr. Reyes," she said. "Make room," he said, "on my count. He has cardiac tamponade. We will relieve it in the OR. He will not make it to the elevator." Reyes snapped his head up. "Not now, Kincaid." The monitors answered for the body on the bed. Pressure sank to a line that did not hold shape. The QRS widened, then trembled. The chest did not pull enough air to raise the ribs. "Charge," someone said. The tone charged. The heart did not. The rhythm tipped into water. "Start compressions," Reyes said. Nora reached for the crash cart. Betadine in one hand, scalpel and ribs in the other. The tray clanged once. Her voice came out without heat. "Fifth intercostal space, mid-axillary line." "Step away," Reyes said. She did not. She swept a brown square across the man's left chest. The antiseptic dripped off his ribs in lines that made thin pink streams. She cut a horizontal 6-inch line where her fingers counted the spaces. Muscle gave, cloth parted. She took the curved clamp and spread tissue until the ribs showed white. "Rib spreader," she said. The metal felt heavy and honest in her hand. One turn, another. The sound was dry and small like twigs breaking. The chest opened. The air in the room changed. She slid her fingers across the beating mass behind the sternum. The pericardium was tight as drum skin. She nicked it with the tip of the scalpel, and the pocket released in a rush. Blood came out hot, the warmth climbing her wrist, the smell of iron rising as if the lights had a scent. The heart moved like a fish out of water. It tried and failed. "Light," she said. The beam found the wound. A tear shone wet where the rebar had kissed the pulmonary artery. Not a rupture. A slice that bled into the sac and squeezed the heart down to a flutter. "Suction," she said. "I need 5-O-proline." No one spoke. Hands appeared anyway. The room had turned to glass. She heard the click of the suction tip against bone. She heard the nurse swallow. She heard Janelle's breath settle. Nora set 2 fingers at 3 points around the tear and pressed. The blood slowed under her touch. The field cleared. She threaded the needle in one smooth move and set the first stitch. The suture sat clean and straight. She tied with hands that knew the exact pull needed to keep the knot small without cutting tissue. Second stitch. Third. She checked the edges. The line held. Fourth stitch for insurance. The heart flexed and found a rhythm. A bum note. Then another, then it settled into a beat that carried blood. The monitor woke back up to the life it had been designed to measure, 60, 72, 81. Nora took a breath she had not known she had been holding. "Tube and dressing. He needs a controlled removal upstairs," she said. "Antibiotics now. Tetanus. Full repair under imaging." Reyes had not moved for a count of 3. He stood at the head, gloved and unreadable. Then he closed his face back over what had passed through it and took the next steps, like he always did. "Secure the tube," he said. "Prep or 3. Move on my mark." People moved. The broken quiet became work again. They rolled the gurney and the rebar and the rib spreader down the corridor. The blood on Nora's forearms cooled in the air and left a tacky grit. She stepped to the sink. Water took the red to a fine pink and then a paler wash. She scrubbed up to the elbows. The stain never stood up and left. It just moved. Janelle came up beside her with eyes a little too wide. "You just cracked a chest in front of Reyes," she said. "I did what was needed. He is going to lose his mind." "I know." She dried her hands and stepped away from the sink. Reyes's voice reached her before he did. "Kincaid," he said. "My office. Now." She followed him past triage and fast track and the closed curtain in Bay 4 where someone cried alone. The office took them in and closed around them. The hum of the light sat on the shelf with the journals. "That patient was clinically dead," Reyes said. "Yes. You performed a procedure outside the scope of your training level and outside protocol." "Yes. He is alive." Nora did not answer. Reyes sat. He did not invite her to sit. He drew the words out like he had to test them before he could accept their weight. "You knew what to do in a way that I do not see in a first year. You took an action that is not taught here. I cannot ignore that. I will not pretend to celebrate it either." He placed his hands flat on the desk. "You are suspended pending review. 2 in the afternoon, conference room B. You will answer for what you did. If you have credentials you did not disclose, bring them. If you have anything to say that keeps this hospital out of court, say it then. Understood?" "Leave your pager with charge," he said. "If you step into a bay before the hearing, I will have you escorted out." She set the pager on the counter as she passed the desk. It felt wrong to let it go. The silence on her hip grew loud. The resident lounge smelled like stale coffee and damp scrubs. 3 people sat around the scarred table with their voices on low. A 4th lay on the couch with an arm over their face. Nora opened her locker. Spare scrubs, protein bar, nothing else. People are saying things a second-year named Dev Patel said. No one does what you just did. People talk, Janelle said. She sat on the table instead of a chair and wrapped hands around a paper cup like it could warm something else. They do not matter. Dev looked at Nora anyway. Where did you learn that 3-point pressure, he asked. That is not in the book. Practice, Nora said. On what? On who? No one you know. The room let the words sit. The moment stretched. Then someone's phone clattered against a tray and the thin spell broke. A nurse stepped in and stopped on the threshold as if the floor might shift when she moved. She held a manila folder under one arm and a lab slip in her free hand. I have the UA on HSU, she said to no one in particular. Bacteria and white cells. Dr. Reyes started antibiotics. She's going upstairs. Good, Nora said. The nurse nodded, relieved to talk about anything ordinary. As she turned, the folder shifted and a corner flashed red through the paper. Not bright. A stamp pressed into the manila left a pale tint that caught the fluorescent light. An eagle shape lived there in negative space for a blink and then went away. Nora's eyes touched it and moved on. Her locker door shut with a clean sound. 2 in the afternoon, Janelle said. Do you want me there? You cannot be. Do you want me outside? Nora looked at her. Janelle's face showed a calm she had worked for. Her hand tapped twice on the table and then went still. Do your shift, Nora said. Do not miss anything for me. Janelle nodded once. Nora washed again. The water ran warm this time. It turned that soft shade and spun down the drain. She watched long enough to count 3 slow breaths. She dried and threw the towel away. Conference room B sat at the end of a corridor that no one used unless they were in trouble or very important. The windows looked at a gray sky that hung low over Seattle. The city reflected back in the glass and made a second hallway inside the first. The door was open. Nora stepped in. A long table, high-backed chairs, the smell of lemon polish and paper. Dr. Lorraine Voss sat at the head with a hard smile and a stack of forms. Ethan Rudd from legal paged through notes without looking up. Reyes stood at the window with his hands behind his back. No one spoke. No one offered a seat. On the far end of the table lay a thin folder with a fresh clip. A small red mark stained the tab near the top. It was not bright. It was the kind of red you see on a map when a boundary cuts through a place and dares you to cross it. Nora took the chair opposite the head of the table and set her hands still on the wood. The fluorescent hum lived in the ceiling. The room had its own frequency. The door clicked shut. The sound had the feel of a lock, even if nothing turned. Dr. Lorraine Voss set a folder in front of her, as if aligning it would align the situation. Ethan Rudd from legal rested 2 fingers on a page that looked too clean. Reyes stayed at the window, part of the glass, for a breath, then turned. Dr. Kincaid Voss said, voice even. We are here to address your unauthorized thoracotomy. In the emergency department, your disregard of an attending's directive and practice outside your current scope. Do you dispute the facts? No. Explain your reasoning. The patient had cardiac tamponade. He arrested. Compressions without relieving the pressure would not restart his heart. The only path was immediate surgical access. Rudd lifted his eyes. Which you are not authorized to perform in that setting. The elevator is 4 floors. He would not have survived the ride. Reyes's tone stayed neutral like a blade laid flat. Established protocol is rapid transport to the operating room. There is no chest cracking in the bay. Voss tapped her pen once. Documentation of training Dr. Kincaid. Anything beyond the CV in your file. I have none to provide. Rudd turned a sheet around. Your medical school record is ordinary. Your references are ordinary. There is a gap between graduation and residency, if there are credentials present them now. Nora kept her hands flat on the table. I cannot discuss certain work. This is not a national security hearing, Rudd said. It is a hospital trying to avoid a lawsuit. The door opened without a knock. A nurse stood there too, bright cheeks red from the run. Dr. Reyes, mass casualty incoming. Construction yard collapse at the waterfront. Multiple critical. EMS says at least 12 3 in extremis. They want all surgeons and senior residents. Voss did not look away from Nora. Dr. Reyes, Dr. Kincaid is suspended pending this review. The nurse caught the edge of the table, breath shaking. We are going to run out of hands. Reyes looked at Voss, then at Nora, then at the corridor behind the nurse where the sound of sirens leaked in like a second kind of weather. His jaw worked once. Dr. Kincaid is reinstated for the duration of the event, he said. We reconvene after. Voss's mouth tightened, temporary only. Understood, Nora said. They moved down the corridor that held its breath past the elevator that glowed silently into the stairwell that knew their steps. The bay had already changed shapes. Extra carts appeared like they grew out of the walls. Gowns came out of dispensers and found bodies. Janelle Park met Nora with a face that tried for steady and almost made it. Assignment, Janelle said. Where I am needed. Reyes's voice cut through the noise from the nurse's station. Kincaid Bay 2, crush injury chest and abdomen. Park Bay 5, Tan Bay 1 with me. Nora slid into Bay 2. A man in his 30s looked at the ceiling like it might lower itself and press him flat. His chest wall moved wrong. She felt ribs jump under her fingers, a set floating loose. She listened on the left and heard not much. Right side labored to make up the difference. I cannot breathe, he said, voice thready. We can fix that, Nora said. Chest tube tray, 14 French. The nurse had it open before Nora reached for the betadine. She painted the skin lidocaine into the space where it would not have time to work scalpel through layers blunt dissection with 2 fingers until the pop said she was in. Air hissed against her wrist, and the tube slid home. The collection chamber accepted blood and froth. The pulse oximeter moved out of the 80s in slow climbs. 90. 94. Reyes called across the room, Bay 1 incoming, penetrating chest. The sirens grew a notch louder. A new gurney drove through the doors, this one shadowed by police and a man in fatigues without insignia. The patient wore a torn reflective vest over a tan shirt that was not standard issued for construction. A jagged steel fragment sat under his left clavicle with an angle that did not look like shrapnel from a building. His face was too white. His eyes stayed alert anyway. Sergeant Miguel Ortiz, the medic said. Training yard near Pier 31. Fragment embedded. Pressure 40 over something that is not a number I like. He is compensating, but not for long. Demolition charge, maybe, someone said. They were clearing the site. The man in fatigues kept to the edge, but his voice carried. Combat engineer exercise. Inert devices. Something was not inert. Reyes took the head again, eyes moving, hands already reaching. We do not pull, he said. Get blood. Call vascular. Nora looked at the wound. The fragment was irregular, but too clean along one face like it had cut after spinning. She slid 2 fingers along the neck to find the subclavian pulse and felt the stutter that comes when blood meets a narrow place. The jugular vein rose. The skin above the collarbone stretched shiny with the pressure underneath. Reyes looked up and found her. Well, if you pull here, he bleeds out before we can touch the vessel. The fragment is plugging a small tear. We need proximal and distal control first. We do not have a vascular surgeon free. Then we do it. Reyes weighed something in a very brief silence. He gave a single nod. Clamps. Vessel loops. 5-O-proline. He glanced at Nora. You are assisting. She met his eyes. I need to see the artery. Then I am assisting. They snapped into sterile together. Gloves, masks, gowns. The room contracted to the rectangle of skin prepped and draped. Nora leaned in close enough to see the shimmer of each heartbeat push a new drop around the fragment. Sergeant Ortiz, she said. I need you awake. I am going to numb what I can. You will feel pressure. I have felt worse, he said. The words came with grit. His pupils tracked her hands. Something changed in his face. Surprise, then certainty. Kandahar, he said, almost a breath. You were on the bird that night, Valkyrie sick. The room bent around the sound. Reyes's eyes cut to Nora. You are confused, Nora said. You told me to keep talking to Lieutenant Morrison, Ortiz said. He was bleeding out and you were sewing in the air. You said talk keeps a man here. You said rank does not stop pressure. Focus on me, Nora said. Stay still. Reyes did not whisper, but he might as well have. Is that true? She did not look away from the wound. He needs clamps, she said. Now. Reyes put them in her hand. She made a careful incision to widen access and followed the edge of the fragment with a blunt tip until she could slide a loop under the artery proximal. The tissue resisted like wet silk. She slid another loop distal. The room breathed with her. She placed the first clamp. The field turned calmer. The second clamp. The fragment sat like a thorn ready to turn. Extraction, she said. A nurse handed her forceps. She took the steel squarely and drew it back the way it had come, steady and straight, not 1 degree of twist. Blood bloomed and then respected the clamps. She irrigated. The tear showed itself like a mouth too small to speak 2 or 3 millimeters clean edges. 5-0 Proline, she said. The needle lay in her palm. She set the first stitch with the arc her hand had made 1,000 times when no one took pictures. The knot seated. The line straightened. Second stitch. Third. She lifted the loop and let a thin course of blood wash past the repair and saw no leak. She released the distal clamp, watched again, then the proximal. The artery sent a pulse that felt like an answer. Radial pulse, she said. Stronger, the nurse said, relief inside the word. The pressure cuff gave a new number that belonged in a living person. 50, then 68. Color crept back into the sergeant's face like the sky after rain. Close, Reyes said. Nora closed the incision in quiet layers and dressed it. She stepped back and the wall of sound returned. The room had given them a pocket where time bent long enough to finish. It snapped back now. Reyes looked at the work, then at Nora. He did not hide the shift in his face this time. Something like respect stood next to the anger and did not flinch. Betu needs the OR, Janelle called from across the way. We got a slot. Move him, Nora said, meaning the crushed chest from earlier. Keep the tube clear, control pain. Tell anesthesia about the pressure swings. Already did, Janelle said, and disappeared behind a curtain pulled on one ring. Ortiz swallowed. His voice went rough. Thank you, Doc. Rest, Nora said. You still hear the hum, he asked, eyes glassy but fixed. You always did. She did not answer that. Reyes stripped his gloves and tossed them into the bin. Powder dusted the air for a second, then settled. Conference room B, he said. 20 minutes. Nora felt the shape of the pager missing on her hip. She nodded. They walked out past triage again. The hallway to administration seemed narrower now that the building had taken in more pain. The lights kept their steady tone as if it would help. Voss and Rudd were in their chairs when they entered. The folder sat where it had been red-marked quiet in the grain of the paper. No one spoke for a long breath. Reyes broke it. The sergeant is stable, he said. Rudd set his pen down. Which is not our only concern. The door opened again before Voss could reach for the script she had prepared. A woman in a dark suit stepped in without asking, badge clipped to her belt, catching the light. She held a tablet and the kind of posture that said standing was her default. Dr. Kincaid, she said, or would you prefer Major Kincaid? The hum climbed a small step. No one moved. The woman set her tablet on the table and let the badge at her belt catch the light. The room narrowed to the sheen on the plastic, the hum in the ceiling, the way Reyes's shoulders squared without him thinking about it. Colonel Dana Whitaker, she said, Defense Health Agency Special Programs Oversight. Voss did not offer a chair. This is an internal hospital matter. It intersected a federal file that woke up 3 alarms, Whitaker said. I will be brief. Her finger touched the tablet and pulled up a record that painted light across the varnish. She did not turn it. She did not need to. Nora Kincaid Whitaker said, 6 years active duty medical corps, embedded with Tier 1 units in Afghanistan and Iraq, forward surgical. Call sign Valkyrie 6, 43 documented combat surgeries with a survival rate your peers would frame. Rudd leaned back a fraction. The leather found a sound. Reyes' face did not move. His hand stayed behind his back. Voss's pen stopped tapping. Whitaker's eyes stayed on Nora. You did not include this in your application. It is not something I could include. Because it is classified, Rudd said. Because I was separated, Nora said. And because my record lives behind doors I do not open. Whitaker did not blink. Wardak Province, August. Joint Task Force hit a target that intelligence described as clear of non-combatants. You refused a direct order to maintain position. You evacuated civilians under fire, 4 children. 2 survived. 2 did not. 3 Rangers were wounded. Mission compromised. Your field privileges were withdrawn. You were medically separated for accumulated stress. The fluorescent hum filled the gap where none of them breathed. That is the official line, Whitaker said. The review above your clearance tells a different story. She turned the tablet at last. A single page with black where names should be. A paragraph near the bottom with language that sounded like a door unlocking. Intelligence was wrong. The site had been used as a shield for weeks. The operation was compromised before the door blew. The children who died were killed by the hostile fire during the counterattack. Not because you moved them. The injuries to our Rangers were not a product of your decision. They were a product of an ambush that should have been anticipated. Nora did not reach for the tablet. She watched the words sit there like a weight placed on the table and then removed. I did not know, she said. The review finished months after you were already gone, Whitaker said. Your clearances had lapsed. You were building a life that did not ask for acronyms. The air in the room changed temperature by a degree. Nora felt it in her jaw more than on her skin. A muscle she had learned to keep held let go of a notch. Reyes pulled a chair away from the wall and set it at the table. He did not say sit. He made space. Nora ignored it and stayed on her feet. Voss found her pen again. Colonel, what is the purpose of your visit, other than to inform us that our resident is a classified asset? Whitaker met that with a small nod. The department is building a program, Civilian Combat Trauma Integration. We want to put combat-proven techniques into urban ERs. We want medics to learn in ORs. We want residents to learn when and how to adapt a procedure for a hallway or an ambulance. We want someone who has lived both rooms to design it. You want her, Rudd said. We want her, Whitaker said. You cannot take my resident, Voss said, voice flat. I am not here to take, Whitaker said. I am here to split. Half time to build the curriculum. Half time to complete her residency at Cascadia. We can pay for the lab you do not have and the mannequins you have not ordered. Reyes finally sat. He did it because the room stood up around him and would not sit down if no one did. She violated protocol, he said. I know, Whitaker said. She saved 2 lives today because she violated protocol, Rudd said. Whitaker looked at Nora again. You separated for reasons that are not only medical. You have avoided rooms like this since. You are in this room now. I am offering work that uses the part of you have been trying to put in a drawer. Nora let her gaze slide to the window. Seattle lay gray and wet outside. The water beyond the buildings held no light. The glass threw her reflection back, eyes too, still a white crescent scar under her left brow. If I agree, she said it's on conditions. Voss did not smile. You do not have leverage here. Maybe none, Nora said. I have terms anyway. Whitaker lifted her chin a millimeter. Name them. I finished my residency here, Nora said. Not as a celebrity, not golden. I take the rotations I have not earned yet. Pediatrics. Internal. Electives that do not smell like blood. I sign in like anyone else. If I walk into a bay, it is because I am assigned. Voss looked at Reyes. He looked back and gave nothing away. The program opens to civilian hospitals that are not flagship, Nora said. Inner city, county, rural places that see the bullets and the chainsaws but not the funding. No one gets blocked because their patch does not say teaching hospital. Whitaker considered a breath. That expands scope. That saves people you do not see in your metrics, Nora said. What else, Whitaker said. Nora turned to Reyes. You get to call me out, she said. Every time I move like I am still in a tent with sand in the sterile field. Every time I make speed a habit. You do not let me turn this ER into a forward aid station. I do not get a pass because of who held a clamp for me once. Reyes did not make her wait. Agreed, he said, in writing. Rudd cleared his throat. He spoke as if he was tired of hearing himself in rooms like this. We need to talk about today. Unauthorized procedure. Defiance. The parts of this that keep me employed. Voss set her pen down with care. The patient is alive. The patient is alive because of action outside policy, Rudd said. The risk to the hospital was non-trivial, but given new information about Dr. Kincaid's training and the circumstances under which the action took place, I recommend we drop formal disciplinary measures. We document, we provide guidance. We do not drag her name into public complaint lists and invite a discovery process that makes Colonel Whitaker our pen pal. Whitaker let that last line lie there without a smile. Voss rubbed her temple once. I do not like the precedent, she said. Neither do I, Reyes said. He looked at Nora, and the look held everything he had not said in 3 hours of watching her work. One more crack of a chest in my bay without authorization, he said, and not even God or the Colonel will keep you here. I do not care who you were. I care who you are under my lights. Understood, Nora said. Then we are done, Voss said. For now. Chairs made small sounds. The room let people out one at a time. Rudd gathered his papers and did not meet Whitaker's eyes. He had other rules to protect in other rooms. Voss closed the folder on his red mark. It looked normal again when she did. Whitaker waited until it was only the 4 of them. She turned the tablet around and let the black lines face Nora again. Those children are not on you, she said. No lecture. No soft voice. She just placed the sentence on the table like an instrument and let it play. Nora felt something in her ribcage shift. Not a pop, a loosening. She took one breath and counted it all the way through. She had not done that in years without hearing voices over it. Whitaker slid a business card from a pocket. It was too white. The edges were too sharp. She pushed it across the wood with a finger. My number, not the switchboard. Nora did not touch it. I will speak with our chief, she said. You already did, Whitaker said. She looked at Reyes and Voss in turn. You will have a letter of agreement by Friday. If you sign, we fund the lab and the mannequins and pay your half-time salary. If you do not, we find someone else and still send you the equipment. You need it. She left without waiting to be thanked. The silence that replaced her was a thing with its own edges. Reyes stood. He came around the table. He did not reach for her hand for a second. He let himself map a new line, first the path between the resident in front of him and the operator he had watched cut a heart free. Start over, he said, Dr. Kincaid. She took his hand. The shake was not ceremonial. It had grip. It set a weight down between them that did not belong to either alone. Thank you, she said. Do not thank me, he said. Make my residence better. Make me better if you can. He opened the door, and the corridor offered them the same gray view it had offered an hour ago. The building had not noticed what changed in its rooms. The lights kept their frequency. The stairwell waited with its rail cold and familiar under a palm that knew it. Nora did not take the elevator. She put her fingers on the metal and felt the way it hummed back a small song that had been there all day. The PA crackled. All trauma staff, to obey the voice said. Multi-vehicle collision on the interstate, 3 minutes out. Reyes looked at her and then at the hall. Go, he said. They moved. 6 months later, the 4th floor did not smell like storage anymore. The old room had windows that faced a slate sky and a line of firs that never lost their color. A bank of trauma mannequins lay under fresh sheets. Carts held portable suction and clamp sets. A projector threw an image on the wall that showed a chest cavity in clean, impossible detail. Nora Kincaid stood in front of 12 residents. Her scrub top carried a small patch near the sleeve. CCTI, nothing flashy. She held a scalpel but did not lift it yet. In the hospital you have light, she said. You have hands. You have time. In the field you have what you carried and whoever can hold a flashlight without shaking. The procedure is not different. The room is. She turned to the mannequin prepped under drapes. Betadine spread brown across the plastic ribs. She set her palm where ribs counted under skin. She did not cut. Recognition first, she said. Resources, personnel, time, environment. She raised her wrist. Someone in the front row saw the 4 letters inked faint along a vein. PTE. She kept her voice even. If you have the resources and the minutes, do the textbook version. If you do not do the thing that keeps a person breathing long enough to reach the rest of the team. Janelle Park stood at the back with a laptop and a stack of suture packs. She gave Nora a small nod and tapped the space bar. A slide took the wall, a picture of a doctor in blue scrubs standing by a patient with a bandage that crossed the chest. Both of them smiled in the way people smile after a night that did not end the way it almost did. Southside Chicago, Janelle said. Dr. Marcus Webb, field amputation to free a crush victim. 1 emergency thoracotomy in an ambulance, 3 live discharges. The room stayed quiet in a good way. Residents leaned forward a fraction. Pens found paper, but no one was scribbling fast. They were watching hands. Nora set the rib spreader on the tray and let the metal catch light. She slid the scalpel back into the slot. You will practice the cut, she said. You will practice the spread. You will practice the stitch. But you will practice something else more. Saying no when the room offers you a hero move you do not need. Phones vibrated in pockets the way the building did when a truck hit the brakes on the street below. Then the PA caught up. Mass casualty alert, multi-vehicle collision, interstate, all available trauma staff to emergency. The room moved without confusion. Gowns found shoulders, face shields clicked. The stairwell took them fast. Nora felt the rail under her palm and the way her breath stacked smooth on the way down. The bay had already cleared space. The first rig came through with sirens still talking. Nora took Bay 2 because Reyes pointed there and because the woman on the backboard stared at the ceiling with lips turning blue. Steering column, impact, the medic said. Unstable, hypotensive, respiratory distress. Tube tray, Nora said. 14 French. Betadine. Lidocaine. Scalpel. The track through tissue. Her fingers found the pleura and the pop released a soaked hiss that blushed the collection chamber. The pulse oximeter climbed with patient patience. 87, 91, 96. The woman's shoulders lowered a fraction. A small sound left her body like something old. Reyes stepped in at the margin and watched without stepping on her work. She called for a surgeon for the belly. He made the call before she finished the sentence. The team rolled the woman toward an open OR slot with the tube secured and the numbers moving the right way. You timed the tube, Reyes said. You did not cut before you had to. Good. Nora nodded once. Sweat had made a damp line on her neck. She felt it when she lifted her chin. They turned and the next bay asked for hands. The hour stretched and bent. It took the shape of IV bags and glove powder, and numbers shouted across curtains. It thinned, then thickened, then slackened again. When the last ambulance left for imaging and no one was coding, Nora stepped to the sink. The water warmed at her wrists and took blood with it until the pink ran light. She counted 3 breaths and closed the tap. Dr. Kincaid. She turned. Miguel Ortiz stood in the entry in a dark shirt and jeans. He had a new scar under the collar where no one could see it unless he lifted his chin. He walked like the limp had forgotten him. He pulled an envelope from his jacket and held it in 2 hands. I wanted to bring you this. Inside was a photograph. Ortiz in a dress uniform, a woman in a white dress at his side. The smile on his face was not the kind he had learned in formation. It was looser. It belonged to him. Emily, he said, we got married last month. Nora looked at the picture and then at him. She did not say anything about luck. There is more, he said. He took a second photo out of his wallet. The edges were soft from living there. A man ran in a race on prosthetic legs with a bib number that read 43. Lieutenant Morrison, Ortiz said. He is a physical therapist now. He sent this. He said to give it to you if I ever saw you again. Nora held the photo of the runner. The road in the picture was clean and bright. A crowd blurred behind a barricade. The number made a small square that pulled the eye more than the jersey. He said, Tell you the life multiplied, Ortiz said. People who walk because he learned how to help them. Families that did not learn to count around a chair at the table. Nora slid the picture into her pocket. It sat against the fabric where she cupped a hand when she was thinking. She looked at Ortiz and saw the place on his neck where the artery pulsed under the skin. Take care of yourself, she said. You too, he said. You looked like this in Kandahar, you know. Calm and listening to a sound no one else heard. He left as quietly as he had come. Janelle set a chart on the counter and breathed in through her nose like she had run a flight of stairs. CCTI sign-ups doubled this week, she said. The county hospital sent 2 names. Good, Nora said. Reyes walked up and rested a knuckle on the desk where someone had dented the laminate years ago. He studied Nora the way he studied films when a shadow did not match the anatomy that should throw it. Your lab is changing them, he said. The way they see what is in front of them. The way they carry themselves after a shift. I can feel it in the room. Nora glanced toward the hallway that led to the elevators and then toward the stairwell door. The sign above it had a light that had been replaced last week and glowed steady. Do you hear it? He said. The hum, she said. He nodded. I used to hate it. I use it now to find my center. I do not know when that shifted. Me either, she said. He did not put a hand on her shoulder. He did not invite familiarity. He gave a small nod that meant he knew what she had done and what she would keep doing under the same lights and with the same rails under the same hands. The bay settled. The voices dropped. The night staff began to arrive with fresh scrubs and small food in plastic boxes. The sun decided not to argue with clouds anymore and the windows turned the color of steel. Nora collected her bag from the locker that still held nothing personal. She slid the photographs into a pocket with a zipper and closed it. The fabric rasped as the teeth met. She crossed the hall. The elevator waited polite and clean. She walked past it and opened the stairwell door. The air inside was cooler. The rail felt like honesty. On the landing, she stopped long enough to listen. The building sang through ducts and wire and old tile. The tone sat level and did not climb. She put her palm on the rail and took one step down, then the next, the rhythm steady from heel to toe. The city below held rain in its smell. The door at the bottom opened onto it. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.